Good evening, everybody. We're resuming our Board of Directors meeting here Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. We're at Jordan Small Middle School gym. We started out our meeting with a call to order and the Pledge of Allegiance, and we went into executive session and came out of executive session. And you might have seen on the agenda that we were going to go into a readmission hearing, but that will not occur this evening. So we're going to jump right to adjustments to the agenda.
And we do not have any adjustments to the agenda tonight.
Okay. On to item number 7, public input. Just a few ground rules. And I've said them several times in the past, but it never to repeat.
Microphone is
Wonky.
Yeah.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So we're into item number 7, public input. A few ground rules. I see some new faces here, so it never hurts to review the process. When you come up to the microphone, will you please state your name and the town you reside in? We're allowing 3 minutes per person to speak. That's been our standard practice. It gets uncomfortable for both the speaker and for me if you go beyond 3 minutes. We don't mean to be rude, but we are limiting everyone to 3 minutes so everybody has equal time. So if you'd adhere to that, that would be great. Orderly conduct at our meetings does not permit spontaneous discussion from the audience. Gossip, defamatory comments, and abuse of vulgar or threatening language are not permitted. Complaints about individual students or employees are not permitted as well. And as we proceed, I hope we conduct this meeting in a very respectful manner. We have students in attendance, and I imagine some students watching. So, saying that, for public input, I am allowing comments for anything on the agenda, anything at all. That's not on the agenda. Nope. Did I say that wrong? Did I say it right?
You're allowing any comment.
I'm allowing any,
Item or not.
right. I'm allowing any comment, whether it's on the agenda or not. It's a change. I like to keep you on your toes. Okay. Who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Barbara Ray. I'm from Wyndham, and could I have clarification? Will there be comment after or before the civil rights team's presentations?
There will be no comment. It is a board presentation,
So I shall.
just board comment. Yes, anyone who would like to speak on that topic is free to do so.
I'm embarrassed. I could hear myself really clearly. So I'm still Barb Murray, and I live in Wyndham. And I wanted to comment briefly on how thrilled I am that the civil rights teams of our RSU 14 are continuing to be in existence. I was honored to be on Wyndham's first elementary civil rights team as an advisor, along with Izzy Booth and Kristen Grant, and Tracy Butler also helped us out back then. And it is so important to make sure that everyone feels safe. And that is one of the charges, as I'm sure you will hear in the presentation. And I'm thrilled to see Jen here representing Manchester School Civil Rights Team. And as Eleanor Roosevelt said, human rights begin in small places close to home. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening.
My name is Dr. Robin Frost. I'm from Wyndham. I'm a parent and a resident, long-standing resident of Wyndham. And I'm also thrilled that the civil rights team is here. It is always beneficial to continue to work on uniting people versus separating people. And I think that I'm a little disheartened, not by anything that's going on with the civil rights team, and I applaud you all. A little disheartened by the continued segregation that this district continues to promote, and the continued lack of recognition of parent involvement. And I'm sure, you know, given the fact that you've asked this wonderful team to be here, they all have parents. And their parents would like to be very much involved in what's going on with how they're feeling, and if they're not feeling accepted or involved, as well as every parent in the school. And what this district continues to do is to separate the fact that parents are not recognized, given Ms. Butler's response that she is here for the students and the teachers. And did we not forget the definition of the PTA, which is Parent Teacher Association? So looking at this district, and has nothing to do with the remarkable teachers that continue to give everything they can every single day, that are being burdened with things other than academics. I would like to see a student describe the singular, plural, and possessive pronouns in terms of academics and grammar. And I wonder how many can. And so you burden teachers with more than what they are supposed to be teaching is really not fair to them at all. And I continue to talk about the fact that this district's and the policies that they put forth, given the fact that there was a survey policy that was passed that contradicted itself. It talked about that surveys will not be used for marketing purposes, yet in the third paragraph, it talks about how the superintendent will detect the identity of the children if it is used for marketing purposes. So how is that uniting people? And I am so glad that the civil rights team's here to talk about the fact that instead of identifying what separates us, let's unite us together. So thank you for being here. Thanks so much, guys.
Who else would like to speak? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Bella. I'm a senior at WHS and I live in Wyndham. I came here to talk about my teachers and how much I appreciate them. I think some folks fail to see the lack of respect that they're giving our education system right now. These are the people who teach our children every day, and they don't have personal agendas. They just do their best to the best of their ability, and they work really hard, and I know how much they care about their students. As a senior, I can safely say that I would not be where I am today without the help and support from my teachers. I know there has been discussion about controversial topics. As a student, I can say that these topics are going to be discussed regardless of if they are in our curriculum or not. Most of the conversations that I've had have been student-led, and I think these are conversations we need to have. Walking around at school, I hear the F slur and other slurs like it, and I think that having these conversations can make our school a safer and more compassionate place. I don't understand why we're so concerned about the books in our libraries when many students have access to way worse content on their phones and TVs. Right now, more than ever, we need to support our teachers, and I know there's so many other students who wanted to be here tonight but couldn't because of sports, jobs, transportation, etc. Again, I'd like to thank the teachers at WHS who work to make the schools a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who else would like to speak? Any takers?
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Napolitano. Thank you for your time. I was just following up. Chris, I sent you an email on Friday. I know there's a lot of questions on that, so I'm sure you're working on that. So I'm looking forward to it. As far as the code of ethic guidelines for the board members and that topic, I was at the workshop. You guys talked about it at the last meeting last week. I heard about that you're thinking about changing the name of that or just removing them altogether. What I haven't heard is adding actual consequences so it actually has teeth. And I know Mrs. Butler said at the workshop that if somebody had a DWI, that there should be consequences. And we may or may not agree on that, but I think that we couldn't have teeth. Having an entity operating without any accountability is dangerous as far as I'm concerned. As far as at the high school, there are some posters up around the school. I saw suicide awareness. I understand that's important. Sad that we have to do that. There's other posters up that a lot of stuff about the pronouns. And one in particular was saying that if a student is interested in changing their name or gender, there's a request form that's available. You can ask for help. I was just wondering if the school was going to send an email or communication to the parents. We were talking about that with the survey, because a lot of parents spoke up on that. And then we were told that there's going to be any insensitive or sensitive information on surveys that they would send in, email in to opt in or out. So this is just another thing that is happening, but there was no communication. So I hope that you consider that. As far as the civil rights team, I'm glad they're here. I've been waiting for this. I'm very interested to hear all the great things they're doing in the community. I know there's a lot of people that their goal is to help. I do have some concerns on those sensitive issues, such as talking to children about sexual orientation and religious issues and some other things. So there is a fine line. So I am looking for to hear about a lot of the positive stuff, but at the same time, my question is, at times I feel the civil rights teams, maybe the leadership, I don't know, I'm going to learn, that they feel that their voice should be louder than the parents, and I strongly disagree on that on specific issues. But I know there's a lot of great people on this team, and I'm looking forward to hear from them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I don't see any movement. Last call for public comment. Okay, I'm closing public input, and we're moving to item 8, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Hell.
I feel like I should do a little karaoke while I've got this. I promise I won't. So a couple things that I want to share tonight. First of all, a big congratulations goes out to Amy Manning, who is the kitchen manager at Wyndham Primary School. She is the main school nutrition manager of the year. So congratulations to Amy. And I think just something would be great for the public to hear. 2 days ago, I was on the state website doing our reimbursement for free and reduced meals, and gives an idea of how many meals served. So our kitchen staff last month, so this is the month of March, served 47,000 meals. So it's just amazing the volume of food. And I actually had somebody ask me a question today, what's the big freezer that's now been put out behind the high school at the loading dock? It's because we are serving so many meals now that we're running out of space to store food. So that's another spot that we can go ahead and do that. Construction, Bill and I had a chance to meet with the state construction team this past week. Things are moving quickly. as far as some initial design work. Right now, we're working on square footage and looking at what the state allowance might possibly be. Construction costs right now are expensive, and I think it's good for the public to hear and for the board to know is that there are not any projects right now approved beyond RSU 14's project on that state construction list. Given where we are with construction costs, we're it, and the numbers for construction, everything seems to be going up. In addition, our soil scientists will be out on a couple sites starting tomorrow, and we'll be starting their initial vernal pool studies and their environmental studies so that those things are really, really moving. I'm sure the staff knows this here, but for everyone else, that tomorrow is the last day before vacation. And then starting Friday, April break begins. I wish everyone a very safe and restful vacation. I know it's always an interesting run between February and April break, and people have been working really, really hard. With that, we have seen an uptick in cases of COVID cases over the last couple of days. Just a reminder to everybody that if you're not feeling well, stay home. Otherwise, we want you in school, but if you're not feeling well, to make sure that you're not there. Also, just want to mention on May 15th, the state of Maine is actually going to be ending their pool testing program. That will no longer be happening. It will no longer be an option for districts. What they're realizing right now is that the pool testing program, and I think the example that was used is a bicycle chasing a bullet train. Right now, with the latest variant, things are moving so quickly. So the state has allocated test kits, home test kits for, I believe, every student in RSU 14. That order will be put in tomorrow. Those will be coming sometime in 1st of May, and then we'll be working to distribute that out to everybody. Also, just want to respond to a comment that was said about the recent policy ILD, which was just passed. It's not a contradiction in the policy. We are required to provide some information by law, specifically when it comes to materials to the armed forces and selective service for the recruiters. And that policy has meant that the superintendent is responsible for making sure that those legally required information sharing things actually go to those entities properly, and that we're protecting students. And also for those who do not wish to participate, that we're giving them that option to be able to opt out. But that's that second half of the policy. That's why it may seem that it's a little different. It's specifically for those cases where we need to provide some information. So with that, that's it for my superintendent's report tonight, and I will turn it over to you, Ms. Briggs.
Terrific, thanks. We're going to move into board roundtable. Anyone wish to share anything? Of course.
Good evening. It's great to see such a large group showed up for our meeting. Just a couple of quick things. So it seems that there's a lot of strife, and has been for at least a year, if not longer, right, in our community. And I think it has a lot to do with assumptions being made by everyone. You know, there's some folks that assume things about one side of people on one side, and then assumptions being made back and forth, and it's culminated into this fracturing of our community, not just Wyndham-Raymond and RSU 14, but our state and our country, frankly, and frankly the world, really, when you get right down to it. But there's only so much that each individual person can do, and I prefer to think that I live in a small pond, because if I start thinking about the big pond, it gets easy to be depressed real quick. So I try to affect what I can in my small pond, and hopefully my ripple effect has positive influences on other folks, that then their ripple effect can have positive influences on others. So assumptions. So I've been saying for weeks now that if parents have a concern with what's happening in the school, they need to partner with their students' teachers. They need to ask questions, respectfully, of course, always. And the teacher should be asking questions also, and not assuming that the parent is there to paint them in a bad light. And I know sometimes it can be hard to do. Some folks have stepped up and said that it's really hard as a teacher to hear some of the things that have been said at these meetings. But at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our students. Where the rub comes is that some folks have a different interpretation of what's best for my particular student or his or hers or his. And that's where it can get dicey. But through communication and coming to a common understanding, I think we can do what's best for our students and our community and hopefully have a good outcome and some productive conversations. Just another quick note, I always talk about if you're either happy or unhappy with the way things are going, you need to be involved in your community. And RSU 14 is subject to state and federal laws and regulations. So if you're not happy or you are happy with something that's going on, you need to get involved with your state and federal legislators to help enact, either make change or keep things the way they are. Frankly, I really don't care as long as people become involved. You could be 180 degrees from everything that I believe in, which hopefully you're not, because I like to think that I'm a decent person, a decent human being, but okay. But people need to be involved and not just sit on their couch or get up to a microphone or get behind a social media platform and complain. One last note, I mentioned this a couple, 3-4 meetings ago. We've had so many meetings lately, I don't even know how many there's been. There were some students in the audience and I mentioned online activities, and it was mentioned again tonight by our senior. Congratulations. And you're part of JMG as well, right? Go GMG. So online activities, you know, parents can point fingers at the school system all they want about what is or isn't being taught in the schools or what they think is or isn't being taught in the schools. If you're not paying attention to what your kid does online, chat groups, gaming, anything that's tied to the internet. Got my daughter one of those Oculuses for Christmas. Yeah, just learned recently that there's live chat rooms on that, and they can play games with people from all over the world. Same thing happened with the Xbox. You'd think that I would have learned after the Xbox, but I didn't. I admit sometimes I'm not the brightest person. So chat rooms like Discord, and I know there were some eyebrows raised when I mentioned that a few weeks ago, because that specific chat room has come up in my family in the last year. People need to pay attention. Don't just hand your kid the iPhone at dinner to keep them occupied or in the car. Don't do it. There's a lot of bad stuff on the internet. People need to pay attention. And I hate to say it, I'm proud to say it. I don't think that even a small percentage of the bad things that happen on the internet happen in this school system. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Here we go. This is what I'm waiting for.
I firstly just wanted to thank everybody for coming to see Jordan Small Middle School's production of Willy Wonka. I think this community really filled this gymnasium and it was a really great production. So I'm really glad to see everybody come out for that. And I also wanted to give another plug for the high school quiz shows. It's going to be airing next week, next Thursday, a week from tomorrow at 8. Another plug for it. So definitely check that out. If you miss it, it's going to be on YouTube, on PBS Maine's YouTube channel about half an hour after it airs. So
Will you email the board?
yeah, sure.
The
Yeah,
results.
I will send you the link for
Okay.
sure. Absolutely.
All set? Excellent. Anyone else? No. Seeing none, we're going to move into item 10. I'm delighted to have the civil rights team and advisors and administrators here to discuss their work in our schools. And I'm pleased we have representation from quite a few buildings. So I'm going to open it up to you, Mr. Helm.
Sure. So this is normally when we have presentations for the board, we have a single table with a couple chairs, but I think we have 14 people who are going to be presenting tonight. So if you are involved and have one of the slides tonight, if you wouldn't mind coming up front here to one of the spots, that way we can move this along. And I guess Ryan and Phil and Vanessa, you may have to bring a chair with you. Yeah, we'll do one on one side. Guys, take. I'll give it to you in a second. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Well, you didn't. I just wanted you in the front row. I'm sorry. And there is not a good place to stand. But tonight's an opportunity for the board to learn a little bit more about civil rights teams and some of the history and some of the work that's done with the student groups, and also with some of our wonderful student advisors who have volunteered to step up and help out with some of the work that's done by the civil rights team. Civil rights teams are nothing new. The project itself started in 1996 through a project with the Maine Attorney General's office. There was just a handful of schools that was started with that. And it was response to some bias and some racial incidences and other discrimination incidences that were being observed across the state of Maine. And it was started as a project looking at ways for students to have conversations and to be able to start address and to raise some awareness. And RSU 14 has had a civil rights team, at least I can tell on the Wyndham side. I don't know when the start was, the genesis on the Raymond side, but for Wyndham, as long as I can remember, and I think as long as I've been an employee in the district. So started the Maine Office of the Attorney General in 1996, supports student civil rights teams in elementary, middle level, and high schools. Tonight you'll have an opportunity to hear about the teams themselves, also to hear a little bit about the legislation that the teams are surrounding themselves with or using, and also hear a little bit about the projects. And then also in this presentation, there's an opportunity to hear some student voice with how students have actually embraced or worked with or had the opportunity to work. All 16 counties and have civil rights teams right now. They're in public, private, and charter schools. And currently in the state of Maine, there's currently in a little over 200 schools. And that's roughly half the schools in the state of Maine have some connection with civil rights teams. So specifically here in RSU 14, it's Wyndham High School, Wyndham Middle School, Jordan Small, and Manchester have civil rights teams. So Christine, I think you have the next slide, and I'm gonna.
Yes, so the mission of the Civil Rights Team Project, that's been around since 1996, is to increase the safety of elementary, middle level, and high school students by reducing bias-motivated behaviors and harassment in schools. And I don't know if you can see this, but a little do you know this information? So we're going to talk a bit tonight about laws and policy and all sorts of things that ground us, the history of the United States, a little bit of a history walk here. So we'll start with this first one, see if it triggers any memories from school and beyond. The passing of what in 1972 made it illegal for educational programs receiving federal money to discriminate on the basis of gender. Anyone want to take a stab? Mrs. Butler? Let's see. There's a little hint down there, but she didn't seem to need it. The passing of Title IX Education Amendments of 1972. Nice. When the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed by Congress, it banned discrimination on the basis of, and there's 5 lines there. Anyone? Oh, right. The board members, oh, I shouldn't have printed the packets. Well, okay, race. Banned discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, and religion. Which amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees due process and equal protection rights to all citizens? Let me call on Al. Nice job, Al. The 14th Amendment. The Americans with Disabilities Act, which protects persons with disabilities from discrimination in many aspects of life, including employment, education and access to buildings and businesses was signed into law in what year? Marge? 1990. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to the next person.
Hi, my name's Darcy Finn. So this is our Civil Rights Team Project focus statement. We help schools think and talk about issues related to race and skin color, national origin and ancestry, religion, disabilities, gender, including gender identity and expression, and sexual orientation. So this is the poster in which that all civil rights team advisors are given that drives our conversations with our students. I brought a poster example, but left it in my car, so I apologize. But it looks exactly like that, just in a poster version. So this is what we use to drive our focus in our classes, or in our, not classes, sorry, in our meetings.
So one of the things that we believe, and they talk about this, from the Attorney General's office, we had a training with the Civil Rights Team Project leader, Brandon Baldwin. He said this, and we say this all the time in our meetings, which is everyone should feel safe, everyone should feel welcome, everyone should feel respected for who they are. And it's why we're here. It's like why we became teachers, so that we could make every kid feel safe, welcome, and respected. That's what we do. That's kind of the core of our belief. And this is a quote from a 7th grader from our civil rights team at Jordan Small, which is, civil rights team means to me that I can make the school a better place for everyone. And that word, everyone, it's really important. Can somebody switch to the next slide? Yes. So we have that. That's sort of the framework. And we know that it's like something that everyone can agree on, that schools should be a place where everyone feels safe, welcome, and respected for who they are. But we all know, we've all had experiences where it's not that. We all maybe have a family member or a friend or child or somebody or ourselves where we didn't feel safe, welcome, and respected in school. We know that happens sometimes. And we also know that sometimes that happens because of our skin color or our religion or our sexual orientation or our gender identity. And so that's civil rights issue. Those are when a student isn't made to, or a person at a school is made to feel not welcome, respected, or safe because of that. It's a civil rights issue, and it's not good. It's damaging for the whole school and the climate and all of the individuals, everyone. So to ensure everyone feels safe, welcome, and respected in schools, we have to talk about civil rights issues. We have to talk about it. We have to work towards making it better. And so that's what Civil Rights Team does, is it helps the school have these ongoing conversations. And we have these ongoing conversations. So that's the framework. That's what we do. I'm not sure who's next. Thanks.
So nice job at the opening pop quiz there. Some of these were mentioned, but if you would like a little more information, there are multiple federal statutes and state statutes, and we're going to drill down a bit to the state statutes. The federal statutes are listed there: Title IV, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title IX, as was mentioned earlier, of the Education Amendments of 1972, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Titles II and III of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. But when we get into state statutes, we'll be looking at an overview of the Maine Human Rights Act and the Maine Civil Rights Act and the influence of those acts on the work of the Civil Rights Team Project out of the Maine Attorney General's office.
For the Maine Civil Rights Act, it's basically focusing on a person having the right to engage in lawful activities without being subject to any prohibited conduct. Christine, I'll have you switch to the next slide. So in talking about this, when there's a focus of our civil rights team, we're looking at this prohibited conduct being physical force or violence, threat of physical force or violence, property damage, threat of property damage, or trespassing. And that basically this cannot be motivated by any bias based on race and skin color, ancestry and national origin, religion, disabilities, gender, or sexual orientation.
And the main Human Rights Act builds upon that with the statement to protect the public health, safety, and welfare is declared to be the policy of the state of Maine to keep continually in review of all practices infringing on the basic human rights of life with dignity and the causes of these practices so that corrective measures may, when possible, be promptly recommended and implemented. So the Human Rights Act prohibits discrimination in employment, housing, public accommodations, education, and credit. It prohibits discrimination on account of race, skin color, ancestry, national origin, religion, disability, gender, sexual orientation, or age. And in our work, we look at the education in particular, but in all of these areas, allowing for basic human rights and the pursuit of happiness.
I'm assuming I'm policy AC. I lost my list of what slides I had, so often you hear at board meetings, you're talking an awful lot about policy. Anyone interested in policy, go to RSU 14 under board, look up all of our policies, everything there. Policy AC, which is our non-discrimination, equal opportunity, affirmative action policy. And it aligns directly with Maine Civil Rights Act, federal civil rights acts, as well as Maine Human Rights Act. So discrimination against and harassment of school employees because of race, color, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, ancestry, national origin, age, disability, or genetic information are prohibited. That same thing, discrimination against and harassment of students because of race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, ancestry, national origin, or disability are prohibited. Over time, different protected classes have been added by the Maine legislature, but each one is recognized as a protected class. And the last piece there, which is board directs school administration implement a continuing program designed to prevent discrimination against all applicants, employees, students, and other individuals having access to rights, school premises, and school activities.
And one more policy that we'll talk about tonight, ACAA, which is harassment and sexual harassment of students. There's also an ACAB, which is harassment and sexual harassment of staff, employees. This policy states harassment of students because of race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, ancestry, or national origin, or disability is prohibited. Such conduct is a violation of board policy and may constitute illegal discrimination under state and federal law. School employees, fellow students, volunteers, visitors to the schools, and other persons with whom students may interact in order to pursue or engage in education programs and activities are required to refrain from such conduct.
And trainings, general information, and content we do share with students. Advisors are trained yearly by Brandon Baldwin. He is the director of the Civil Rights Clubs, and he's right in correlation with the Maine Attorney General's office. At the training, we meet with schools from across the state. We learn all the same information, so all the schools are in alignment. We review and use a set of age-appropriate resources that is created by the Maine Attorney General's office. The resources include videos and ideas of how to increase the visibility in our school for inclusion.
So at Manchester, this year we have 4th and 5th grade students. We have close to 90 students who did join and bring back slips to us. They meet once per month, and we never know when it is. It is always the second Wednesday, and the kids are always asking me, is it civil rights today? Is it civil rights today? And I'm like, let me go check. I'm not sure. So I got to get that straight because they're always asking. But an example of a lesson that Jen has done with the students, they went over family structure and made posters about civil rights leaders, which we will share in just a moment. And the creation of the signs, if you come to our school, you'll see these, the all are welcome signs. And those all use the language encouraged by the Maine Attorney General's office. And it does say bathroom news because these are shared and on the stalls in the bathroom. But one of the students did this on Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So you can see they did a little project with the what, when, and where they are now. And they do this in a short amount of time because their time together is it's during their recess time if they choose to join, and it's for about 25 minutes. And I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. You'll hear from students in their own words, starting at our age level, which is 9 and 10-year-olds, and then you'll hear throughout the presentation as the students get older in middle school and then in high school. So we have 6 quotes from students at Manchester School. Why is civil rights important? Because it's important not to bully people based on their race. Why is civil rights important? So that people are educated about race, sexuality, disability, all of that. Because you need to know about certain things so you don't say something to them. You can know what is right and not right to say to people. Because it's good for our education. Learning about cultures and race, you can talk with others that are a different skin color, and you can talk to other people that have different families, like 2 moms or 2 dads. You can learn about different cultures and what they do for holidays. You can learn about special things that older generations did. Civil rights are important because it gives everyone an equal chance at things. Because if one person is Black, then the other is white, it doesn't make sense for one person to have an advantage. Civil rights is really important for all. And last, why is civil rights important? We don't want it to turn out like it was in the olden days. We want everyone to respect each other, whatever color they are, so people can stay kind. I'm enjoying Civil Rights Club.
Howdy, everybody. I'm Alex Adams. I'm one of the Civil Rights Team advisors at Jordan Small Middle School, along with my friend Jed here, who forgot to introduce himself. Hi, Jed. I'm so glad to have this opportunity to talk to all of you about the Civil Rights Team here at Jordan Small. I'm really proud of the work that we've done, and I'm excited to share it with you. First, the 2 pictures on the slide that you'll see. The first one is a group of students last year working on the welcome banner for Jordan Small. We were doing that outside because of COVID. It was fantastic. It's still hanging in our hallway now. And the second one is an example of student leadership in our school. So we have some members of our Civil Rights Team who identify as non-binary. And in their classes, they noticed that their teachers were referring to groups in using gendered language. They came up with an idea to talk to the staff and offer them an educational opportunity, because maybe the staff had never talked to a non-binary person and maybe they didn't know some gender neutral pronouns. So they worked together, they generated a list on their own and presented to the entire staff, which was a little nerve-wracking for them. Standing in front of your teachers and talking to them about something that's important to you is kind of a big deal in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I was so proud of them to see them do that. I'm gonna read you some quotes from our students. These are all in response to the question, a couple of questions: what does Civil Rights Team mean to you, and why are you part of the Civil Rights Team? The first one reads, I am a part of the Civil Rights Team to try and make positive changes in our community and make the environment of our school better. Go to the next one. Is it there? Yeah. I'm so excited that the animations are on the slide. I worked hard on that. The second quote is, I am a part of the Civil Rights Team because it means I have a part of the community that is trying to help everyone that is part of the world. This student said, I'm a part of it, but I editorialized to make it a little easier. I am a part of the Civil Rights Team because my rights were violated, and I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to anyone else. And our last quote from Jordan Small is, to me, Civil Rights Team means helping and finding your community. In the JSMS Civil Rights Team, we educate ourselves and others about the many religions, cultures, disabilities, and orientations. Through this team, we have helped change things about our school. It's off to Fernando.
Several I've heard. Hello, everybody. My name is Fernando Hinojosa. I'm the Civil Rights Team Advisor at Wyndham Middle School. And I'm here to tell us, of course, about the Civil Rights Team at Wyndham Middle School, what we're working on, what projects have we engaged with this year thus far, and how is our work helping to make our school a safer place. Starting with, I'd like to start with a little snapshot of who Civil Rights Team students tend to be. Civil Rights Team students who participate in the Civil Rights Team tend to be really invested and care about those around them. They are interested in issues of justice and fairness, and they generally just really, if there's any one unifying theme, they really want to make a difference. They really want to make a positive impact on their school. So having stated that profile of the typical Civil Rights Team student, I think you can imagine one of the potentially missing characteristics there is that these students tend to be pretty vocal, outspoken, really eager to kind of share their mind and engage with these ideas, engage with these thoughts, which is great because one of the kind of ongoing systems that we have at our school, one of our oldest traditions with the Civil Rights Team is our presence during our morning announcements. Every week we have a student who has quotes compiled in advance, who shares a quote from a prominent civil rights leader to start our week off right, essentially, and also to reinforce some of the work that we're doing alongside some of these outreach systems. What you're looking at right now is the Wyndham Middle School Civil Rights Newsletter. So I was going to say that not all of our students, as again, we can imagine, are going to be excited to talk to 700 students over announcements. It's pretty scary. Not everybody's excited about that, but we have lots of project initiative options that folks can engage in, can get engaged in, and more importantly, these projects come from students themselves. So their skills, their interests, the things that they're seeing at their school that they want to prioritize. So the newsletter was proposed by a group of students who were an incredible group of writers, very engaged in their craft, and wanted to start a platform from which to essentially engage in the outreach and advocacy that we do. So we put together this newsletter, which was a monthly publication. You can put all the images up if you like, it's okay. Monthly publication in the top center there of all sorts of really awesome student work. We had students volunteering last minute to write in, biographies of civil rights leaders. We had question and answer sections based on questions we thought students in their school might have, vocabulary, pride flag of the month. Basically, if it was in some way related to the world of civil rights teams at the middle school level, it was probably on our drawing board, if not actually on one of our newsletters. Well, the newsletter has been since supplanted by the weekly newscast, the middle school civil rights newscast. Again, just to honor those that focus on student directedness, student interest and skills. We chose to, students, I should say, is kind of what I want to reinforce, chose to reassess some of our outreach that we've done and take a look at things that we can do differently. Our intention here is to convey essentially more or less the same content, but through a visual medium that's going to change the way that we engage with the school, and we'll see what happens. And obviously along the way, it's honoring some interests that we have that we get to play around with. iMovie and green screens and all that stuff that I've been learning as of late. On the bottom left is the welcome banner. Another project that I just wanted to highlight for a little bit. The welcome banner is an ongoing project with our civil rights team. It's located right outside the cafeteria. If you're unfamiliar with the school, it's basically, you can't miss it. It's like somewhere really in a main section of our primary hallways. And let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. One second. I'm very much a notes person. Here we go. I didn't, yeah. Let's go back to the previous slide. I wasn't finished, sorry. Looking through my notes. The banner. The banner is a project that's always growing, changing, adapting. As we continue to honor the message of all are welcome here, we continue to, for instance, revise submissions on the banner to make sure they accurately reflect our school composition. We also are frequently finding ourselves just fixing the banner and replenishing components that get worn down over time. This is a middle school after all, so these things are bound to happen. Also, this wall, again, if you're unfamiliar with the school, happens to be adjacent to one of our lunch lines and to the cafeteria. So sees a lot of action, but that's okay because I think it reinforces to our team the lesson that our work is never quite finished, and that what we're doing, what we're engaging with is not just a one and done sort of situation, I guess, but an ongoing conversation. And our banner basically never gives us the chance to miss out on that aspect of the nature of our work. We don't only do project initiatives that come from our students. We also try our best to find events nationally, internationally, that give us an opportunity to support our school in celebrating one or more of our civil rights categories. For example, and most recently, we celebrated the International Transgender Day of Visibility on March 31st. The day, if you're unfamiliar, was an opportunity for us to celebrate contributions from transgender folks, as well as raise awareness about discrimination historically towards transgender folks. So students identified this as an event that they wanted to pursue based on our understanding of school priorities and conversations that we've had. We initiated a poster campaign. We made some large prints of that poster you see in the bottom center. And we put those up around the school to sort of get the date, the name of the event, the mission out on our radar. And we did some tabling too. On the week prior to the event, we had students kind of go out there and engage other students alongside this poster, talk about what this event is, why it's important. Prior to these tabling sessions in those mornings, we also had some students who were interested in crafting some pronoun pins. So pins with a combination of various pronoun terms, which we offered to any students who are interested, who are coming in and talking about and engaging with the purpose behind the event. We offer them for folks who wanted to kind of continue those conversations elsewhere in the school throughout that day. All right. Again, through this here. Finally, I'll be kind of brief about this one. On the bottom right, we have an image of a mural, which is actually sitting now complete, again, in one of our main hallways. But it's a mural that is kind of on our radar right now because it's seeing, I'm happy to say, some expansion. We're kind of adding some more layers of awesomeness to it. I would like to simply read the quote that students selected. The quote is, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Those are, of course, the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and they are words that I believe our team aspires to model, to speak up rather than stay silent in instances of bias-based language and harassment, and to serve as the light and the love that we share around Windham Middle School to make sure all folks feel welcome. Going to the next slide, as tempting as it would be to end with a quote by Martin Luther King Jr., that being maybe a little bit cliche, I would just like to end with having us reflect upon some quotes, or really a selection of quotes from our students. So our students prepared responses to a few questions that we kind of put out there. My hope was to do kind of a one-at-a-time reflection, but considering the slides are up, as well as the fact that many of us already have all of our slides present, which is okay. I did not realize that we have all our answers. I suppose I'll leave these up for now. There's quite a handful, but feel free to read through them here as I wrap up. I just really wanted to reinforce that this student voice is something that civil rights teams, such as the ones that are being represented here, are tasked with leveraging to get our schools to think and talk about issues that relate to the Maine Civil Rights Act. Yes, all I'll say is that our work is premised on the belief that our schools are only stronger, our communities are only stronger when all are welcome. And I'm just very honored and very happy to be able to do this work with our students. Thank you.
So I'm Darcy Finn. I said that earlier, but I work at the high school, so I should have said that as well. I'm one of the co-advisors. So I just wanted to reintroduce myself, and I'm going to give it to my co-advisor because she's going to do this side.
Hi, I'm Jen Dumont. I'm the JMG core specialist at our high school, and I also have the honor of being the co-advisor to our civil rights team, which Darcy and I just undertook this year. So we're brand new, but we have an amazing group of kiddos who are fired up and ready to go and make Wyndham High School welcoming for all students. And so some of the initiatives we have done this year so far have been our Wyndham High School Day of Welcome. And as you can see here, I don't know if the next slide, Kristen, is the, yeah. So this is our big poster that is currently in the grand staircase, which we're vying for a huge wall in the high school to, hello, back there, where we would like to paint this beautiful student artwork, and just, it's beautiful. It's welcome, Wyndham Eagles welcomes everyone. And so that is the objective. I can speak, I think, for Darcy and I when I say our objective as educators and also as the civil rights team co-advisors is simply to make our school a place where everyone feels welcome, supported, heard, and loved. And so that's what we've been busy doing this year. We just had our visibility campaign, or we're in the midst of it right now, where we take each individual theme set out by the Attorney General office, and we put posters up around the school. We can relate very much to Manchester in the fact that we meet usually about a half hour a week, and I usually pillage for poster board and other things where we can put up these amazing creative posters that are group of, what do we have, 30?
We had 30 set up,
Like
12 consistently home.
30 kids, a lot of freshmen, which is awesome because we plan on going in this for the long haul. So they'd make these beautiful posters, and we just make our presence known around our campus. So I think that's about what we wanted to, what we wanted to say. Oh, I can read these. We just did this the other day. This is our, we asked kiddos in our 20-minute meeting to write a statement about why they are part of our civil rights team project. I am in civil rights in order to ensure that all students feel as though they have a voice in our school. I'm in Civil Rights Club because even though we are just working out of Wyndham High School, hopefully people will take our meetings and apply them outside of school and help other people. I'm in Civil Rights to help and try to show students in my school that their voices are being heard and there's someone that can help them. Why civil rights is important is the purpose that we are working and creating ideas so that kids and teachers will take the messages we're giving them and use it. The civil rights team is a safe place for people to come together and do something in the school. Also, as a Black student in a predominantly white community, it makes me feel like I'm doing something good. So that's our reason. Okay.
So we would like to thank the students who are not all here tonight, but their voices have been heard, and some of them are in the audience, I believe. And for those of you at home, thank you to all of the Manchester Elementary School students participating, Jordan Small Middle School, thank you, Wyndham Middle School, and Wyndham High School for your participation on the Civil Rights team and for elevating awareness in your school community surrounding the importance of creating a safe, inviting, and inclusive learning environment for all. And thank you to Jennifer, Fernando, Alex, Jed, Darcy, and Jen for your support of civil rights teams. We appreciate your leadership in this area of school safety, climate, and culture. And this is a slide we saw earlier, and I believe the team wanted to close with this as a reminder of the core beliefs of this work.
Thank you all. This was very informative, and it's very rare that we have all of the administrators and advisors for a group here from all of our buildings. So we appreciate your time and all the work that you do on behalf of our students. I'm going to open this up for any questions from the board. No, I do. Anybody? No, okay. So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't have questions. I just want to, I want to thank you all. I mean, this is not easy work by any stretch of the imagination. It takes dedication. And like I said, it is definitely not easy. I grew up in Boston. So I really get this. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Sure.
Hey, Chris, can you tell me, is this a committee or is there one individual leader of the civil rights team, or are they all collectively leaders in their own individual school?
They are all individual leaders in their individual schools. They do receive training through the Maine Attorney General's office. I don't know, because I'm not involved in their conversations, how much they talk between each other as far as collaboration of activities and such. But these are each student activity groups that exist in those 4 buildings, that which is Manchester, Jordan Small, Wyndham Middle, and Wyndham High School.
Okay. Excellent. So that was actually one of the questions that I had. Brendan Baldwin. Who is he? I think I heard it, but I want to ask for clarification.
Brandon Baldwin is a coordinator for the Maine Attorney General's office and actually serves to support civil rights teams groups across the state and providing them support or providing the materials or other things that individual chapters would like to request for help. He's their go-to person.
Okay. Is he a lawyer or is he a psychologist? What is his actual profession? He works for the Maine Attorney General's office, but what does he do? Okay. Who? Okay. For the 4th graders, can you tell me, is there parent consent required for that? Okay, there is. Thank you. For the newsletter, I believe it was it Middle School that had the newsletter that went out? Were those newsletters being passed out, or was it like a newsstand where people would walk by and they would pick one up? Can you clarify that?
These were distributed by email to our listserv for student email to school staff.
Okay, so they went through school email. Okay. And then the pins that were recently handed out at Wyndham Middle School, those were passed out. Was that like a newsstand type where somebody just walks by and grabs a pin, or was it actually walked around and did you hand out a pin or select a pin? How did that work exactly?
Kind of a mix of both, kind of right in the middle. So we weren't really. Oh, sorry. Forgot. Little from column A, little from column B. So we didn't have folks, or didn't encourage folks to swing by and just grab a pin, nor did we actively kind of hunt people down, for lack of better words, and have them take a pin. We had a table set up in the mornings at our school where we had our poster, our pins, as well as some students that were there to talk students through a little bit what we were doing for the day.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
It does. It does. Thank you. I really think that, the mission of this group is purposeful. I think that there are some very good intentions with this group. I think the presentation and our meeting earlier today really kind of helped clarify a few things for me. But I do want to be honest, there are some sensitive topics that fall within the parameters of the civil rights team. And I think that we need to be conscious of that. And I think for some of these, we do need to be reaching out for parent consent. I don't disagree that this group should absolutely exist for the students that want it, for the students that need it. I think that this group will actually serve a purpose for those students that they're coming into adolescence. They're trying to figure out who they are. And I think that that is very important. I also believe that it is important to make sure that we include the parents on these important topics and decisions. And I really hope that as the frontline advocates for our children, that you are always going to encourage our students to have an open and honest dialogue with their parents, first and foremost. So I think that as I walk down the hall in this school, and I'm sure it could be similar in other schools, it's literally every 10 feet. And I wonder, are we advocating for our kids to feel welcome? Or are we jamming something down their throat? Are we creating something else? And I don't think that we're going to get the answer to that tonight, but it is a concern that some people have in this community. So that's all I have to say. I want to thank you guys all very much for taking the time to come to the meeting. I know that some of you were not looking forward to this, but it has been insightful, and I'm going to kind of chew on it, a little bit more. And I'll certainly reach out to Chris if I have any specific questions or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody?
I just wanted to thank the civil rights team for coming and speaking tonight. I think it's really important that students feel as though they have a voice, because the last thing we need in this district is to have students who don't feel heard and don't have a voice. And I think all of the projects and events that this group is organizing is really important to the student body. So I just wanted to thank you for putting the time into organizing all of these events and meetings.
Thank you. Mike.
There we go. The ladies on both sides of me have permission to kick me already. So I want to kind of, I guess, keep going from Scott. Really impressed with the presentation tonight. And I think I was actually the person that asked for this presentation. So I have been a little nervous about it and what was going to go on. I've joined the board recently, although I was on the board here many years ago. So I'm kind of new to this. And so the gender survey that came out that everybody, we all heard about, I literally was my first night here. I heard about that and parents were complaining and I looked at it and I was concerned as well. And so it caused me to think of what the role of parents are in your group, and you've answered that already. So thank you for that. And I kind of asked, what is this group about? And I was told it was student-led. And I kind of walked away thinking that. All right. How's that? Okay, thank you. So I was told it was student-led, and I while I do this because I want to show you something. So I work in politics actually, And I thought, okay, cool, whatever, student led. And then I started hearing there's 14 of you, which is very impressive. And I started going online and I started seeing there's a lot of paperwork about this. So it made me just think, well, wait a minute, this doesn't really look student led. It looks kind of the adults are involved. So, you know, I just want to acknowledge that. I think Scott already mentioned, which is kind of my thought tonight too, is you guys really deal with a lot of hard issues and a lot of good things. And it looks like you do a good job with it. But it's just a weird time. For the kids that are in a room, I'm 62 years old. I just turned 62. When I was a kid, we all called, I'm from New York. We called each other names. We're like, hey, you're you know, Italian, you're Polish. But it's because we liked each other. And I don't know what flipped. My baseball coach called me Mick. I'm Irish. I never thought about suing him. It was like, wow, he knows who I am. That's awesome. So I'm almost sad that, you know, something has happened in the world that things have kind of flipped, that now we're more worried about each other versus working together. And so I like your message that you're talking about getting to a point where, like Martin Luther King said, we don't worry about all these labels. You know, we're just all people. We're all together. So I mentioned I work in politics. And so a question I guess for somebody in the group is some of the labels and things you mentioned tonight, there's two sides to them. And I wonder, do you talk about, we had an issue this year when I got on the board about Black Lives Matter. I know you guys didn't mention it at all tonight, but, and I totally understand the concept of Black Lives Matter. And I also read the newspaper and know that the organization itself has done some pretty bad things, like looks like they've embezzled money and they've done some pretty poor things. So I wonder as a group how you handle that. You mentioned the transgender issue. I worked in mental health for many years, and you know, there are some healthcare concerns about transgenderism. So that would be a question I guess I would ask, but I'll finish. I think that's most of what I want to say, other than a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you're right, we've had a lot of meetings. We had budget, the schools were visiting and the principals were letting us know, you know, what they were doing for their budget. And they all had goals and they all had some vision statements, were all awesome. And a couple different principals mentioned that the goal of the school, and maybe this is it and I'm wrong, but at least two people said the goal of the school system was relational, helping kids with relations. And I was like, wow, I thought it was about, you know, preparing kids, you know, teaching kids math and whatever. So I guess that's, I don't know. I'm the kind of person, I'm going to get in my car and drive home tonight and have a bunch of really great questions for you guys, good feedback and all. But I guess I would ask that one question. Is there, as you're doing these things, is there balance? Do you talk about any balance in some of the issues you deal with? And I don't know if is that a fair question, but. Yeah, and am I making myself clear? I mean, these are just, things have changed a lot.
This is probably a generalization, and I'm just speaking for everybody, so if I'm wrong, you could correct me. I think we do behave very carefully so that we're in line with what the resources and the messaging from the law, through the Attorney General's office, through the materials, the verbiage, as much as we can be, because we are aware that it's sensitive in a lot of ways. I would say we do not engage in politics. So we don't have debates, we don't host debates, we don't purport our own beliefs on kids. We're not grooming, and I think there was an implication about that. That's not what we're about. We're really about respecting kids wherever they're at, whatever their families are doing, that's great. It's really about, I think what Fernando said, it's about love and making every kid feel respected. We definitely don't encroach into, we're careful about anything that would sound medical, you know, or clinical psychiatry, counseling. That's not what this is about. That's sort of my general answer. Thanks.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I do work in politics. I don't like it actually, but I do it. That sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? But they pay me so. And there was a legislation happening. I couldn't be in the room, but I'm doing it right. Thank you. Well,
turn it on.
How about that? All right, I apologize. And I just thought it was so simple, it was brilliant. They were just talking about different people, and then one of the representatives said, "Why don't we just say all people?" And I just challenge all of us that we can get to that point. And actually, somebody was reading from the Maine Constitution in the first act or whatever they call them. It basically says all people. And so I just encourage you guys to strive for that. And I thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you. Anybody else? No other questions? Okay, thank you all so much for your preparation for this evening and your care and concern for our students. It really means a lot to us, and we're very grateful. So thank you all. All right, let me find. Okay, now we're going to talk numbers. Item number 11. May I have a motion, please?
I move, oh, wait a minute. No, we're not. We're on the budget.
I move to approve the proposed FY23 RSU 14 budget in the amount of $54,497,963.77.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment on the motion for the budget for the 2023 school year? Oh. This is what happens. You raise your hand and I jump on it. Okay. Okay, I don't see any public comment. Is there any board discussion? No? Any comment from you?
I'll just quickly say it, and board members, you had this in your packet. The budget that you're seeing represents version 9 that was discussed last week. This does include the tech integrator that was added back. Just again, to recap for everybody, the difference between version 5 and version 9 was an $809,000 reduction that happened over the course of that process. And I think, as I said the very first night when I presented my budget, it always is a process. And so I think it's also important for everyone to know that if you're not familiar with school budgets, the $54,497,963 is a spending limit, and the district cannot extend over that amount over the course of next year.
I would like to thank the administrators and central office, and Stacy, I know you're probably watching. Thank you, Stacy. You're our numbers person. And the board too, because we started out at 6.34% increase, and we're now at 4.34. We're very aware of services for our students, but also the impact on our citizens that we serve. And so I'm pleased. There are things that I wish we could have kept, but at the end of the day, I am very supportive of this budget.
Chris, would you mind just real quickly outlining the next steps following, just for any audience?
So this is the first of 3 votes for this budget. The next vote will take place on May 18th in the Windham High School Auditorium at 6:30. That is a meeting that's moderated by our attorney, Bill Stockmeyer, and it's an opportunity for the public to review all the different articles with the budget. In addition, at that night, looking to approve the adult education budget and any capital reserve budgets. And as I've shared with the board before, we will be bringing forward a capital reserve from current carryover to cover costs associated with pre-planning for the new middle school. Money that we have to take out of our pocket now, but will be reimbursed from the state later. So that will all happen on May 18th. Following the May 18th meeting, the warrants will go out to the different towns. And I believe the vote this year is what, June 14th? which is the day before school gets out. And that is where the public gets a chance. This year, the budget is just a simple yes, no. There will not be the voting on all the individual cost centers that are there or the normal warrant articles. It's been the last 2 years because of COVID, we've not had that May meeting. And for those of you who have never been to one, it typically runs like a town meeting.
Thank you. Any other comment before we vote? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. You got that right? 8-1, thank you. Oh, sorry, you're right, 7-1. We're moving on to item 12, Manchester Boiler Project. May I have a motion, please?
I motion to move forward to enter into contract with Mechanical Services of Portland, Maine through Androscoggin Bank in the amount of $211,466.25 to install a new boiler and to complete the scope of work.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment or discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. There's a second part to this.
I move to authorize the superintendent to enter into the financing agreement of the lease purchase of the awarded bid for one new boiler in the amount of $211,466.25 at 2.92% interest, amortized over 5 years at an annual cost of $45,011.27, should that be in the best interest of the district, pursuant to 28 MRSA subsection 40013 in the format presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment? Yep. Oh, here.
I just had a very quick question. I didn't have time to do the math. How much interest is that versus if we're leasing? I'll handle it.
I can get that to you, that information. Municipal leases are a little different where the first initial payment is done right up front. And so it's 5 payments. I will happily send you that in email along with the other questions that you've asked.
Any other public comment? Board comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. We're going to move on to committee reports. Pete is in here for finance, facilities, and middle school construction.
So facilities hasn't met since the last time we were here. Middle school construction did meet though. We had a good conversation about what we were thinking as far as what we wanted to put in the new middle school. We did not continue with the conversation as far as where we have determined that site location to be, because we're still awaiting some test plot results to come back. But because it is a state-funded school, what typically happens in these scenarios is the state will cover a certain portion of the costs, and then it will go down to the municipal level as far as auditorium space, for example, maybe an extra gymnasium, maybe an indoor running track, some additional outdoor learning space. And so those costs is not necessarily covered by the state. That would actually be passed down through our local agreements the cost sharing formula would come into play. So Raymond would receive a portion of those debt payments. Wyndham would receive a portion of those debt payments. So we basically just kind of talked a lot about what we would like to see in this new middle school. And these are all conversations that, you know, you reach for the stars, see what the numbers look like, and then you start cutting backwards from there. Because you're never going to know what these numbers look like until you actually start plugging those into a matrix. So, Chris, did I miss anything?
No, not whatsoever. And that's actually back to the beginning. That's the initial conversations that we're having with the state, which is what are those set square footage parameters? And we did learn this week that as far as an auditorium goes, the state will pay for the stage and all the things that go beyond that, but anything in front of it would have to be a local cost. So
who makes these rules anyway?
Well, the rules, if they're dependent, are you going to do a gymatorium? So there's your stage, and they would put in a gym, or would you like to do a cafetorium, or would you like to do an auditorium? So there's all sorts of different options, and when it comes down to square footage, they start to nail down. So for instance, a classroom's 900 square feet. So our architect is very well versed within the state formula and has been working along, and we started working through some of those numbers with Maine DOE Wednesday afternoon. So today is Wednesday, yesterday, Tuesday.
That's it.
Okay, curriculum.
Okay, so luckily Christine Hessler, thank you very much, because she writes me up these beautiful notes. The curriculum committee met yesterday, which feels like a week ago, and made a determination for handwriting for kindergarten students. We're going to have Christine Hessler come to the full board and give an update with just a short presentation. We also reviewed the draft of a curriculum review cycle starting next fall. This will allow the committee to have a schedule of each content area, and then we can add things as requested and stuff. Our next meeting is May 10th, and we have requested that Christine Hessler bring forward to the committee information regarding cursive writing for our review. From there, she will update the board to help facilitate a board discussion on this. Also, just so everybody knows, the curriculum minutes are posted on our website as well as our agenda.
Thank you. Adult Ed.
We are meeting next on Monday, May 16th from 6 to 7.
Look.
No meeting.
Okay. Okay, I'm just asking, just in case it changes. You've done your deal, so you're all set. Perfect. Policy, we met on Monday and reviewed the Code of Ethics policy. We did side-by-sides of 6 other current policies in the surrounding areas. And additionally, we looked at MSMA policies, so we took a deep dive in how our policy compared to others. We are recommending just a few tweaks on the policy, but then we discussed the possibility of a regulation. So we drafted a regulation that we will be bringing forth to the board for your consideration that outlines a process that you might like. We'll see. We did not have a chance, that took the bulk of our meeting. We did not have a chance to review what was on our agenda, the communication policy that we had discussed at our retreat. We didn't have a time to get to that, nor did we have time to prioritize our very, very lengthy list of policies. And Christine and I are going to meet next week and kind of tackle that and then present that to the committee for their review. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say, and I think we covered committee reports. May I have a motion for the report of the secretary?
I move to approve the minutes of the April 6th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Any public comment? Board discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
The regular meeting. Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much for your attendance this evening, and to those who are watching, we appreciate it. Good night.